In the next 30 seconds, you'll see a veteran engineer forced into a war with the most corrupt HOA in Colorado, 30 days to tear down basic flood defenses or face a lawsuit, neighbors begging for refuge in waist-deep water, a six-figure embezzlement scheme, phantom insurance exclusions, an FBI sting, a homemade flood wall that stands against a raging creek, and a courtroom showdown that changes everything. So if you love high-stakes true stories of flood fighting and justice, like and subscribe for more. What's your wildest HOA nightmare? Drop it below and tell me where you're watching from. 3 weeks ago, my wife Elena and I moved into Willowbrook Estates, a freshly built subdivision about 30 miles from Denver. Every house looked identical, the streets unnaturally level. As a retired Army Corps engineer who spent 20 years designing flood control projects, the moment I stepped out onto our corner lot, 8 feet higher than everything else, I smelled trouble. The earthy scent of creek silt mixed with new construction lumber. That smell meant water had been here before, and it would return. Elena had just beaten cancer after 18 brutal months. Chemotherapy had left her fragile but determined to rebuild her strength in a peaceful spot. We wanted calm, not conflict. But on day 2, I was marking property lines when the sound of designer heels on concrete announced the HOA president's arrival. "Hi, I'm Brandy Ashworth," she said, clipboard in hand, her smile blinding. "I noticed you've installed those sandbags by the creek. They violate community standards. Remove them in 30 days or we'll pursue legal action." Her tone was fake concern. Her eyes measured our property value. I showed her the county flood maps on my phone. Historical floods here in 65, 83, 99. "This is just standard flood prep," I said. Her smile flickered. "Ancient history," she replied. "Modern engineering fixed that. We don't want unsightly barriers ruining our aesthetics." She slapped a pre-written violation notice in my hand and strode off in a cloud of perfume. That night I dug into the HOA's finances. Every homeowner pays $200 a month in comprehensive flood protection fees. 200 homes, that's nearly $500,000 a year. Public records showed zero spent on drainage improvements. The money was funneled into flower beds, office salaries, and Ashworth Property Management's consulting fees. Not one penny went toward flood mitigation. I took out my laptop at midnight, Elena asleep beside me, and drafted plans for a permanent flood wall. By morning, I had a full permit application ready. The county engineer complimented the design: proper weep holes, reinforced concrete, landscaping to blend it in. Meanwhile, Brandy had already filed a city complaint about my unpermitted construction. I called Inspector Rodriguez. "Looking forward to reviewing your engineered flood wall tomorrow," I told him. The next day, I watched Brandy's confidence crack when I mentioned our friendly chat. "You already spoke to him?" she gasped. "He says this creek's been trouble for decades and you're the first homeowner doing due diligence." I just shrugged. She left in a huff. 2 days later, Brandy returned with 3 board members clutching a petition, 47 signatures, half obviously forged, demanding I halt my wall project. I laid my blueprints on my truck hood and explained how my wall would channel overflow away from every foundation in the neighborhood. Brandy barely glanced at them. "This is a civilian subdivision," she sniffed. "We have our standards." Her board treasurer, Mike Stevens, added, "Maybe you should have stayed in the military if you can't adapt to civilian life." Elena bristled. "My husband prevented floods that could kill thousands," she said quietly. "Yes, we have standards," Brandy shot back, "like decorative grasses and rain gardens." I almost laughed. A rain garden won't stop a 100-year flood. Next morning, I found a dead fish in our mailbox and tire tracks through Elena's flower beds. Our paper went missing. Dog waste appeared on the driveway. Elena's car was keyed. She stopped receiving invitations. Neighbors crossed the street to avoid her. Then someone whispered false rumors to her oncology support group, claiming I was dangerous and unstable. That was the last straw. I returned to the public records. Brandy's husband worked for Cromwell Insurance, which underwrote every policy in Willowbrook Estates, and buried a clause on page 47, pre-existing flood conditions not covered. Colorado law requires insurers to disclose such exclusions, but Cromwell hid them in fine print. I called my old Corps buddy Doug Martinez, now a county utilities engineer. He poked at the storm drains and retention ponds and shook his head. "They engineered this place to flood," he said. "A decent thunderstorm will swamp. Basements. A real flood will be like shooting fish in a barrel." Brandy scheduled an emergency HOA meeting to ban military-style defensive structures. She mailed flyers to everyone but us. What she didn't know was that Mrs. Vanessa, our elderly neighbor who survived the 1999 flood, had been watching. She knocked on our door holding that flyer. "They're planning a vote without you," she said. "I remember that flood. You have to be there." 43 homeowners gathered that Thursday night. Brandy set up poster boards of my ugly sandbags and called it an eyesore that threatened property values. She pushed for a ban. I stood up. "Before you vote, you should see what you're really voting on." I pointed the projector at aerial photos of the 1999 flood, 3 feet of water over 60% of homes, $47 million in damage. The room fell silent. Doug stepped forward and explained how the drainage system was undersized by 30%, retention ponds mislocated, creek channeling increasing flood risk by 40%. Then I clicked to HOA budget slides, $0 on flood infrastructure. The fake flood fees had paid landscaping, Bellevue office supplies, and Ashworth property management. Someone whispered, "No wonder the creek's a threat." I saved the best for last, the insurance, exclusion clause, and a radio intercept Doug had made of Cromwell's regional manager ordering claim denials across Willowbrook. When the crowd realized their flood insurance was worthless, they erupted. The vote was 43-0 to suspend Brandy and call for a criminal investigation. She fled the room. By morning, word had spread. Sarah Beth Wilson, an investigative reporter from Channel 9, was at my door with her camera crew. She watched me lay out the policy exclusions and budget sheets. "This isn't just HOA fraud," she said. "This is systemic insurance corruption. Federal charges, at least." Elena poured coffee with a steady hand that cancer had forged strong. "How much are we talking?" she asked. Sarah Beth tapped her calculator. $2.3 million conservatively. That Friday brought an unseasonable heat wave melting mountain snowpack and triggering flash flood warnings for the entire Front Range. I spent Saturday mixing concrete and reinforcing the wall, the air heavy with the smell of lumber and coming rain. Doug installed automated creek gauges that sent me text alerts. Mrs. Vanessa organized a phone tree. Tom Bradley set up ham radio links with County Dispatch. Elena documented every step, photos and video with timestamps. We turned my driveway into a command center. When Brandy called in panic, water pooling in her garage, she begged for help. I agreed, but only if she called every homeowner to warn them their insurance wouldn't cover a flood. She hesitated, then confessed she'd intercepted my certified letters. Her voice trembled. "If I do that, they'll hate me." "Let them hate you or let them drown," I said. The rain began at 11:47 p.m., sounded like buckets dumped on the roof. By 2 a.m., the creek had doubled its width. Branches and debris surged past my flood wall, which held firm. Automated alerts buzzed in my pocket, 4 feet above normal and rising. Elena and I watched the swollen torrent from our living room window. Agent Jennifer Walsh from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division arrived in an unmarked SUV, ready to eat every bite of evidence. By 3 a.m., Mrs. Vanessa reported water in her basement. We evacuated her to our guest room. Then calls came from 2 streets over, families trapped upstairs by rising water in their first floors. Mike Stevens, panicked, begging for rescue. We launched the inflatable rescue boat from my driveway, ferrying one soaked family after another to safety behind the flood wall. 20 people by dawn. At sunrise, Willowbrook looked like a lake of brown debris. Channel 9's live feed showed families huddled in our garage safe zone beside shots of flooded homes and floating cars. The local adjuster arrived early just to deny every claim under Cromwell's buried exclusion. We intercepted his calls via Doug's radio feed. He confirmed the denials were automatic. At 10:30 a.m., FBI agents in street clothes led Brandy Ashworth off in handcuffs. She stumbled past her submerged BMW and into their van. We watched in silence. No triumph in her fall, only relief that justice was finally real. 2 weeks later, we packed the community center again, this time for an emergency public safety review. County commissioners, state insurance regulators, FBI agents, media crews filled every chair. Sarah Beth streamed live as Agent Walsh laid out evidence: $1.4 million embezzled, insurance conspiracy to deny claims, mail tampering, intimidation. Brandy, pale and rumpled, was summoned to explain herself. Her only defense: "I didn't intend anyone to get hurt." Mrs. Martinez yelled, "You sold our safety for your yacht payments." Commissioner Valdez declared an emergency fund for victims and a lawsuit to wipe out Cromwell's exclusions. Mrs. Vanessa, voice trembling yet firm, summed it up: "You almost drowned us for profit. This time, community saved itself." The applause shook the room. I was offered a role as the county's emergency preparedness consultant. Elena squeezed my hand and whispered, "Go help more people." I nodded. The work was just beginning. Back home, I stood before our flood wall, now painted with bright murals of hands lifting each other above rising waters. Kids added the final strokes: rainbows, rescue boats, family portraits. Elena joined me, paintbrush in hand. "It isn't just a barrier," she said. "It's hope." 2 weeks later, I got a call from an HOA in Arizona missing wildfire mitigation funds. Elena saw me grin and asked, "Road trip?" I handed her my notebook. "Looks like it." If you'd like more stories like these, please like and subscribe.